Few people, however, know about the deep biblical history of this area. Those who do wonder if the megaproject would help or harm the region's historic value.
For centuries, Mount Sinai has existed somewhere between faith and mystery, but in 2025, everything changed. Using 100 times power drone-mounted ground-penetrating radar, researchers scanned mountains long hidden from excavation. What they found beneath the rock wasn't random geology. It was straight lines, sealed chambers, and geometric patterns, deep underground. No tools, no digging, just data. And the implications are so controversial that archaeologists and governments immediately went silent. The most contested mountain in history. For centuries, the identity of Mount Sinai, the mountain where Moses received the Ten Commandments, has ignited debate among historians, theologians, and archaeologists. The biblical story in Exodus 19-20 names Sinai as the meeting place between God and Moses, yet it never provides exact coordinates. Two primary candidates have dominated discussion for millennia: Jabal Musa, a peak rising to about 2,285 meters in the Sinai Peninsula, Egypt, and Jabal al-Lawz, a 2,580-meter mountain in northwest Saudi Arabia near the Gulf of Aqaba. Both sites lie within rugged desert terrain, and both have attracted pilgrims, explorers, and critics. For generations, Jabal Musa, Mountain of Moses, served as the traditional site for Christian and Jewish pilgrims. It hosts St. Catherine's Monastery, built in circa 565 CE, one of the oldest continuously operating monastic communities in the world. Many pilgrims climb its 3,000-plus stone steps each year, believing that the surrounding landscape matches descriptions of the biblical wilderness. Scholars who support this site argue that centuries of tradition and textual linkage merit its prominence, even in the absence of definitive archaeological proof. An alternative theory, gaining traction since the late 20th century, posits Jabal al-Lawz in what is now Saudi Arabia as the real Mount Sinai. Proponents point to local geographic markers, blackened rock faces, ancient rock art panels, and plains purported to match Exodus descriptions, as support. For years, however, access restrictions and lack of high-resolution subsurface surveys left this hypothesis on the fringe of academic discourse, with both skeptics and believers struggling to point to convincing material evidence. Without solid archaeological data, the debate remained largely unresolved into the early 2020s, anchored in tradition, speculation, and interpretive readings of ancient texts like Numbers, Deuteronomy, and later historical sources. But the lack of evidence didn't lessen interest. Instead, it fueled more ambitious efforts to see beneath the desert sands where history might lie buried, waiting for the right tools to reveal it. In 2025, a new technological breakthrough promised to transform this centuries-old debate. In Section 2, we'll look at a powerful radar drone that could literally see beneath the surface of candidate mountains. A 100 times radar drone changes everything. In 2025, archaeologists and geoscientists deployed a new generation of drone-mounted ground-penetrating radar (GPR) system designed to outperform earlier instruments by roughly 100 times in penetration depth and resolution. Traditional GPR units on land vehicles or handheld poles could only reach shallow subsurface layers, usually a few meters deep, and struggled in rugged terrain like Sinai's jagged hills or the steep slopes of Jabal Musa and Jabal al-Lawz. This left large swaths of potential evidence unexamined. The breakthrough came when engineers outfitted an autonomous aerial platform with a high-power radar array capable of penetrating upwards of 10 to 30 meters beneath rocky desert surfaces. The system flew systematic grids over key terrain in both Egypt and northwest Saudi Arabia, areas that were once too remote or politically restricted for comprehensive study. With flight altitudes carefully controlled, generally 50 to 120 meters above ground, the drone produced subsurface slices in unprecedented detail. Unlike standard aerial photography, which shows only what's visible at the surface, this advanced GPR reveals buried features based on electromagnetic wave reflection and subsurface density variations. Peaks, valleys, chambers, potential roadways, and even small cavities produce identifiable radar signatures. For the first time, archaeologists could examine hidden complexity beneath candidate sites without excavation, a crucial advantage because many areas lack permission for digging. This high-resolution radar approach also overcame logistical challenges. Previous radar surveys were constrained by vehicle mobility and terrain difficulty. Desert sands, escarpments, and limited access roads made extended GPR campaigns near impossible. Drone deployment allowed grid coverage of hundreds of square kilometers in weeks instead of years. For Mount Sinai research, this meant both traditional sites and alternative hypotheses could be evaluated with the same instrument, under comparable conditions, producing consistent data sets for cross-comparison. Armed with this new radar data, researchers discovered surprising subsurface anomalies. In Section 3, we examine the geometric patterns detected beneath candidate mountains and what they might mean for ancient human activity. What the radar actually revealed. When the 2025 drone flights over Mount Sinai candidates were processed, archaeologists saw something unexpected, subsurface features that defied pure geological randomness. Beneath what many believe to be the real Mount Sinai, whether the Egyptian Jabal Musa region or the Saudi Jabal al-Lawz plateau, radar scans showed straight lines, right angles, and consistent geometric patterns. These rarely occur naturally in desert bedrock, especially at the depths, often 5 to 30 meters below surface, where such anomalies appeared. In several sectors, the GPR imagery revealed long, linear bands with remarkably straight segments extending tens of meters. These were not curved or irregular reflections typical of natural strata or faulting. Rather, they looked like intentional alignments. Archaeologists interpreted these as possible man-made structures, walls, ancient roadbeds, or boundary lines, buried beneath millennia of shifting sand and alluvium. The clarity was unprecedented for desert subsurface scans. Even more striking were clustered radar returns, suggestive of enclosed spaces, perhaps chamber-like voids beneath the ground. Some appeared as rectangular shapes, with corners at near right angles, a hallmark of human construction. While radar cannot confirm function or date, only subsurface geometry and density contrasts, these shapes stood out from known geologic features and merited further attention. Their presence across multiple candidate zones suggested patterns inconsistent with random deposition. The implications were profound. For the first time, quantitative subsurface data, not just surface features, suggested complexity beneath potential Sinai sites. Straight lines, chambers, and geometric groupings raised the possibility of buried ancient roads, ritual platforms, or even settlement remains. This was the first set of empirical clues that something beyond natural geology might be hidden under what had long been contested terrain, including places tied to the Exodus narrative and Bronze Age mobile populations. These subsurface patterns go beyond academic curiosity. If confirmed, they could reshape how the Exodus story is mapped geographically. In Section 4, we explore why these findings matter to that narrative. Why this matters for the Exodus story. For biblical historians, the story of Exodus 19, where Moses receives the law on Mount Sinai, has long been a cornerstone of Judeo-Christian tradition. Yet the physical reality of that event has always been elusive, with the new 2025 radar scans suggesting underground structures at multiple Mount Sinai candidates. The possibility emerges that some part of the Exodus narrative may have been rooted in a real location. Specifically, the subsurface anomalies, linear pathways, chamber-like voids, and organized layouts match expectations for ritual spaces or ancient encampments. This matters because the Exodus account includes not just Moses climbing a mountain, but the entire Israelite community encamping nearby. There would have been livestock, water needs, food preparation, and space for a large gathering, suggesting infrastructure, or at least temporary habitation. The presence of subsurface features at highland desert sites like Jabal al-Lawz now provides a possible physical anchor for these descriptions. Some scholars also note the Bible's references to smoke, fire, and quaking ground during Moses' encounter with God. Jabal al-Lawz has a blackened summit, possibly from lightning strikes or ancient geothermal activity. Supporters of this site argue that it aligns more naturally with the Exodus 19 imagery than the granite peaks of Jabal Musa, which show no such scorching. But Egypt's traditional Sinai still holds theological and historical weight due to its association with St. Catherine's Monastery. Regardless of which side one favors, the radar data introduces an entirely new dimension to the debate. It's not just about textual interpretation anymore. Now, science is uncovering measurable anomalies that demand explanation. Whether they support or contradict biblical claims, they compel further study. This growing debate brings us to one of the most controversial Mount Sinai theories, that the real site isn't in Egypt at all, but rather across the border in northwest Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Arabia hypothesis. Among all contenders, Jabal al-Lawz in northwest Saudi Arabia, near the Gulf of Aqaba, is the most frequently cited as the real Mount Sinai by proponents of the alternative geography theory. This granite mountain stands roughly 2,580 meters tall and features a summit that appears scorched black, fueling theories that it matches the burning mountain described in Exodus 19-20. Proponents, including researchers and explorers like Ron Wyatt and Bob Cornuke, have long pointed to this location despite mainstream academic skepticism. Recent 2025 radar scans added scientific intrigue to the claim. Drone imagery showed rectilinear anomalies near ancient plain-like valleys at the mountain's base, potentially matching the large gathering space described in the Exodus narrative. Some claim to find split rocks, said to be the stones struck by Moses to release water, Exodus 17, though this remains speculative. Additionally, petroglyphs depicting cattle were discovered nearby, unusual for a region without historical cattle herding, which some claim relate to the Golden Calf episode. Local Bedouin tradition has long regarded Jabal al-Lawz as a sacred mountain. While oral history is not proof, it adds depth to the narrative when combined with recent technological findings. Importantly, this region has been off-limits to extensive Western archaeological excavation, due to both geopolitical sensitivity and religious oversight by Saudi authorities. Supporters argue that the new radar data, in conjunction with on-the-ground anomalies, strengthens the Saudi hypothesis more than ever before. Critics remain skeptical, citing the lack of Bronze Age pottery, dated inscriptions, or settlement evidence. Yet even doubters concede that Jabal al-Lawz now has more empirical support than it did just a few years ago, and that warrants further investigation. Still, many defenders of the traditional Egyptian location aren't backing down. In Section 6, we examine why the Jabal Musa site remains at the heart of mainstream historical and religious consensus. The traditional Sinai argument still stands. While new discoveries have ignited debate, the traditional site of Mount Sinai, Jabal Musa in the southern Sinai Peninsula, still commands support from a majority of mainstream historians and theologians. The site has been venerated for over 1,500 years, with St. Catherine's Monastery, built in circa 565 CE, anchoring its spiritual authority. According to this view, long-standing tradition carries historical weight, especially in the absence of definitive archaeological evidence elsewhere. Critics of the Jabal al-Lawz theory argue that the term Arabia, used in Galatians 4:25, often cited in support of the Saudi location, referred to a much broader Roman province, including parts of the Sinai Peninsula. Furthermore, Egyptian records, trade routes, and settlement patterns during the Late Bronze Age, circa 1500 to 1200 BCE, align more naturally with the traditional Sinai region than with northwest Saudi Arabia. Skeptics also point out that no Bronze Age artifacts, encampment remains, or inscribed texts definitively linked to the Exodus have been found at Jabal al-Lawz. In contrast, Sinai Peninsula excavations have uncovered seasonal camps, Midianite pottery, and inscriptions associated with Semitic populations, though none conclusively prove the Exodus narrative. Nonetheless, this gives the Egyptian side a slight evidentiary edge. What many scholars agree on is that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. The new radar data could help both sites by guiding future excavations, but until dated artifacts or primary inscriptions are found, the case for either mountain remains circumstantial. The weight of tradition keeps Jabal Musa central to religious pilgrimage, and for now, archaeological orthodoxy. So, what are the strange shapes beneath the Saudi and Egyptian mountains? Section 7 explores what radar signatures actually mean and what subsurface features could exist beneath the surface. What the subsurface patterns could be. When archaeologists first examined the high-resolution radar maps from 2025, they noted several striking features under both Jabal Musa, Egypt, and Jabal al-Lawz, Saudi Arabia. The radar returns showed straight lines hundreds of meters long, right angles, and geometric sequences not consistent with random natural geology. These patterns stood out against the chaotic background of fault lines and natural strata usually seen in radar profiles from desert terrains around the Red Sea. One interpretation is that these linear features could represent ancient roads or pathways created by human activity during the Bronze Age, circa 3,300 to 1,200 BCE. In many early cultures, ceremonial routes, sometimes called processional ways, were cleared or constructed to link settlements, high places, and water sources. Radar lines extending beneath plains or plateaus could reflect compacted soil, buried stones, or even collapsed surface features long covered by shifting sands. In other areas, the radar detected shapes resembling buried chambers or enclosures, some measuring 5 to 20 meters across. These could be anything from tombs and burial platforms to storage facilities or ritual spaces. Geometric arrays of this scale are known in other Near Eastern archaeological contexts, including Nabatean sites and Bronze Age cities. But confirming their origin requires excavation and precise dating using radiocarbon, C14, or optically stimulated luminescence, OSL, methods. Critically, the archaeologists warn that radar can only show shape and density differences, not date them. Straight lines might look artificial, but still result from natural processes such as desert lamination, fault propagation, or erosion channels. Similarly, void-like radar returns might be pockets of relatively low density, not necessarily man-made chambers. The current radar evidence raises questions and points to intriguing possibilities, but cannot definitively identify ancient human structures without follow-up excavation or sampling. To understand why this subsurface data only now became available, we must look at the technology itself. Section 8 examines how radar innovations unlocked secrets hidden beneath millennia of sand and stone.
Why radar technology only now has unlocked this?
Until recently, ground-penetrating radar, GPR, was limited by power output, antenna size, and environmental interference. Traditional units on trucks or handheld rigs could barely penetrate dry sand or loosely consolidated soils beyond 3 to 5 meters. In rugged mountainous terrain, like the slopes of Sinai or northwest Arabia, these devices were essentially blind. This left massive gaps in archaeological data and kept subsurface mysteries beyond reach. That changed with the introduction of drone-mounted GPR in 2025, which combined larger high-energy radar arrays with autonomous flight control. These radar units operated at frequencies capable of penetrating up to 30 meters or more beneath dry, rocky ground, without physical contact. For the first time, scientists could perform systematic subsurface scans over hundreds of square kilometers in a fraction of the time it once took years. As the discussion expanded, the global archaeological community weighed in. Section 9 explores how these findings have shaped scholarly debate and what remains to be resolved in the Mount Sinai controversy. The global archaeological debate. News of the 2025 radar surveys rapidly spread through academic circles, triggering vigorous debate among specialists in biblical archaeology, Near Eastern history, and geophysics. While some scholars hailed the geometric radar patterns as promising clues, others were quick to point out that promising does not equal proof. The caution was rooted in decades of cautionary lessons about drawing broad conclusions from limited evidence. Critics often note that desert environments, especially those around the Red Sea Rift and Sinai Shield, have complex subsurface geology. Processes like desert lamination, geological fault lines, and ancient water channels can mimic straight lines on radar returns, producing false positives. Without sampled artifacts, stratigraphic context, or dated remains, many archaeologists warn that the features could be natural rather than man-made. Beyond scholarly debate, the broader implications touch on history and faith. In Section 10, we explore what this might mean for cultural narratives if the real Mount Sinai is ever confirmed. What this means for history and faith. If future work ultimately confirms that the radar anomalies near Jabal Musa or Jabal al-Lawz correspond with ancient habitation, ritual platforms, or ritual spaces dating to the mid-2nd millennium BCE, the implications could be enormous. It could offer the first physical anchor for a narrative long confined to scripture, interpretation, and pilgrimage traditions. This would represent one of the most significant archaeological developments of the 21st century. For religious pilgrims, the discovery might shift patterns of visitation. Currently, millions of believers walk paths at St. Catherine's Monastery and the traditional Sinai site based on centuries of devotion. If evidence points instead to Northwest Arabia, pilgrimage routes, ecumenical tourism, and religious geography could experience a dramatic transformation, with economic and cultural ripple effects for communities in both Egypt and Saudi Arabia. Historians would also have to reconsider how they teach ancient Near Eastern history. Biblical geographies, such as the route taken by the Israelites in Exodus 12 to 15, might be redrawn on maps, placing certain events in new topographical contexts. Universities and seminaries might revise curricula to juxtapose textual study with verified archaeological landscapes, bridging disciplines once considered incompatible. If these radar discoveries are confirmed, Mount Sinai may no longer be a matter of belief, but evidence. History, scripture, and geography would collide in ways no one expected. The question now isn't if something is buried there, it's why it stayed hidden for so long, and who decides what happens next.